On November 9, 2025, the BBC was rocked by the simultaneous resignations of Director General Tim Davie and CEO of BBC News Deborah Turness. The news sent shockwaves through the media world, leaving staff and viewers alike stunned and searching for answers. Their public departure signaled a dramatic admission of failure at the top of one of the world's most respected media institutions, raising urgent questions about leadership and accountability. The catalyst, a firestorm over a controversial edit in a documentary about former US President Donald Trump, ignited fierce debate both inside and outside the BBC. This wasn't just about one program, it exposed deeper issues of bias, eroding impartiality, and a growing disconnect from the public. The controversy highlighted how fragile trust in media can be. The resignations marked a reckoning for the BBC, an institution long seen as the gold standard of journalism, now facing a profound identity crisis and a pivotal moment in its history. The central question: how did a century-old institution with a global reputation for excellence make such a fundamental error? What went wrong behind the scenes? The answer lies in a tangled web of editorial misjudgments, internal battles, and the relentless pressures of reporting in a polarized world. For the BBC, the path forward would demand not just reflection, but real change. The BBC is more than just a broadcaster. It's a British institution, woven into the fabric of daily life for generations. Its iconic programmes, familiar voices, and global reach have made it a symbol of national identity and pride. The BBC is funded by a unique licence fee, a system designed to ensure its independence from both commercial pressures and direct government control. This model is meant to protect the BBC's editorial freedom and allow it to serve the public interest above all else. For decades, its reputation for impartiality and accuracy has made it a trusted source for millions, both in the UK and around the world. The BBC's news coverage has often set the standard for journalistic integrity. But in today's increasingly polarized climate, the BBC faces criticism from all sides, accused of liberal bias by some and of being too establishment by others. The debate over its role and perspective has never been more intense. The licence fee itself is under constant attack, with critics questioning its fairness in the age of streaming and on-demand content. Many ask whether the model is still relevant in a rapidly changing media landscape. Every editorial misstep is seized upon by those eager to see the BBC diminished or its funding model dismantled. Social media amplifies every controversy, fueling public debate and skepticism. The result: a fragile environment where trust is eroding and the BBC's future as a public service broadcaster is under threat. Staff feel the pressure as the organisation navigates an uncertain path forward. The recent scandals have only intensified this scrutiny, casting a long shadow over the BBC's reputation and raising difficult questions about its accountability. The BBC now stands at a crossroads, its most valuable asset, public trust, hanging in the balance as it faces perhaps the greatest challenge in its long and storied history. The crisis began with Panorama's 2024 documentary, Trump: A Second Chance? An investigation into Donald Trump's political comeback. The program aired during a period of intense focus on US politics, drawing a massive audience and inevitable scrutiny. Its goal to explore Trump's influence and the implications for America and the world. But a crucial segment, featuring Trump's January 6th speech, was edited in a way that fundamentally altered its meaning. The edit became a lightning rod for accusations of manipulation and bias, raising serious questions about the BBC's editorial standards. What should have been a showcase of public service journalism instead became a symbol of institutional failure. The controversy quickly escalated, threatening the BBC's credibility at home and abroad. The fallout would soon reach the highest levels of the organisation. At the heart of the scandal was a short, edited sequence from Trump's January 6th speech. The documentary spliced together two phrases, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol" and "fight like hell," spoken nearly an hour apart and in different contexts. This edit created the false impression that Trump was directly inciting violence. Crucially, the program omitted Trump's calls for peaceful protest, distorting the original message. By stripping away context, the BBC violated its core principles of accuracy and impartiality. Critics saw this not as a simple mistake, but as a deliberate attempt to mislead. The error was indefensible, fueling claims of institutional bias. The damage was done. Trust in the BBC's editorial integrity was shaken to its core. The resignations followed the leak of a damning internal report by former Standards advisor Michael Prescott. The report, published by The Telegraph, revealed that the Trump documentary was just one example of broader editorial failings. It cited anti-Israel bias in BBC Arabic's coverage of the Israel-Hamas war and the suppression of stories about single-sex spaces due to internal staff pressure. The report painted a picture of a culture where guidelines were ignored, certain viewpoints privileged, and accountability lacking. With evidence of institutional bias now public, the BBC leadership could no longer dismiss criticism as politically motivated attacks. Reaction to the resignations and leaked report was swift and polarized. Donald Trump called the departing leaders very dishonest people, accusing the BBC of meddling in US politics. The White House echoed his sentiments, branding the BBC fake news. Inside the BBC, Tim Davie defended the organization's journalism but accepted responsibility. Deborah Turness denied institutional bias, urging staff to stay resilient. Politicians seized the moment. Labour's Culture Secretary offered formal thanks, while Conservatives demanded sweeping reform. The public, meanwhile, was left disillusioned, with debates raging over bias and the future of public service broadcasting. The scandal became a political weapon, deepening divisions over the BBC's role and funding. The resignations marked not closure, but the start of a new, uncertain chapter. The Trump documentary was only the latest in a string of controversies eroding trust in the BBC. The Gary Lineker affair exposed the BBC's struggle to enforce impartiality rules, especially on social media, and revealed deep internal divisions. The BBC faced backlash for airing anti-Israel slogans at Glastonbury and for pulling a Gaza documentary narrated by a Hamas official's son. Each incident reinforced the perception of an organization lurching from crisis to crisis. The cumulative effect, a narrative of repeated failure to uphold its own standards. The Trump documentary was simply the breaking point. The leadership crisis comes at a pivotal moment as the BBC faces a critical Royal Charter renewal in 2027, a process that will determine not only its funding, but also its core public mission and the very principles that have guided it for nearly a century. With its top leaders gone and its reputation battered by scandal and public scrutiny, the BBC enters these high-stakes negotiations from a position of unprecedented weakness, raising concerns about its ability to defend its values and independence. The leaked report will be seized upon by critics and political opponents, fueling calls for radical change, including scrapping the licence fee altogether, a move that would fundamentally alter how the BBC is funded and operates. Alternatives such as a subscription model or direct government funding are being debated, but both threaten the BBC's editorial independence and its unique public service remit, potentially making it vulnerable to political influence or commercial pressures. The BBC board, now under the leadership of Chair Samir Shah, faces the urgent task of appointing a new Director General, someone with the vision and credibility to restore public trust, unite a shaken workforce, and defend the institution's future. The stakes could not be higher. The very future of public service broadcasting in the UK hangs in the balance, with millions relying on the BBC for trusted news, culture, and education. The coming debate will be fierce and deeply divisive, as the BBC's unique character, its funding model, and its role in British society all come under intense scrutiny and threat. The next leader must convince both government and the public that the BBC can reform, adapt, and remain an essential part of national life, preserving its independence while evolving for a new era. The BBC now faces an existential crisis. Restoring trust is its greatest challenge. New leadership must address the failures exposed in the Prescott Report, strengthen editorial oversight, and foster a culture of genuine diversity of viewpoints. The BBC's survival depends on proving it can be a reliable, impartial source in a world awash with misinformation. Its global reach and resources remain unmatched, but only real reform will secure its future. The public, not just politicians, will decide the BBC's fate. Every decision will be scrutinised, every report analysed for bias. The path to redemption is steep, but for the sake of a shared, factual reality, the BBC must succeed. The world is watching.